My name is Adam McKenzie. It's spelled A-D-A-M, M small c, capital K, E-N-Z-I-E.
So you pronounce jet?
I pronounce Z. Yes.
Yeah, that's very familiar because that's how I was trained in Korea, how to pronounce jet. But in the United States, they never say jet, they say Z.
Z.
Yeah. It's very nice meeting you again. What is your birthday?
29-10-27.
I'm sorry?
29-10-27.
So October 29th,
Yes.
27.
1927 I was born.
Where were you born?
I was born in a small village called Bowness, approximately 40 miles from here.
Bunes, could you spell it?
B-O-N-E-S-S.
And double S. Bonus. Tell me about your family when you were growing up, your parents and your siblings.
My father was a groom who looked after horses. I had 6 brothers and sisters. There is still 3 of us left yet. We have lost the other ones. And literally we stayed in a little cottage just on the outskirts of the farm. Went to school, done the normal things until eventually joined the army.
So when did you graduate your school?
When did I?
Graduate?
I left school in, let's see, 1944.
1944.
1944.
And what school was it?
My last school was Falkirk Technical.
Could you?
Falkirk Technical, T-U-C-H-I-N-A-L.
Technical?
Technical.
So what do they teach?
What is it?
What do they teach?
Everything.
Like?
English, maths, French, geography, history, you name it, they taught it.
No technical stuff like job skills or anything like that?
They didn't teach these in schools in them days.
So why do they name it as a technical school?
Because it was just, I suppose, a name they had for it, that's all.
Were there any family member serving in the army, British Army? No.
No. Well, I had a brother who done national service, which was compulsory during the war. He was older than me. He was called up, but he didn't make a lifetime of it. I make a life out of army service. I've done 34 years as a serviceman.
34. Please explain to the audience the difference between national service and regular army.
Well, during the war, everybody who became 18 years of age, unless they were in a job that was essential, they were called in to do service within the services. When they went in, they didn't know when they were coming out. It depended when the war finished. And they all got more or less demobbed within 6 months of the war finishing.
What about regular?
And a regular soldier, he went in and you signed down then for 3, 6, 9, 12 years, whatever it was you wanted. And if you were successful, you could extend that service further.
So I can say that regular soldiers, they are career soldiers.
They're career soldiers.
But the national service just conscripted for the army, but they discharged after the war, right?
That's correct.
So let me ask this question. Did you know anything about Korea when you were graduating in 1944?
No. We didn't know anything about Korea in 1950 when we were told we were going to Korea. Never mind 1944. I didn't even know, the regiment didn't even know where Korea was. We were stationed in Hong Kong at that time.
But didn't you learn world history at the time?
Yeah, but Korea was a small country and was never mentioned.
Did you learn anything related to world history? Were there any courses on world history?
No.
So the British school didn't teach world history.
Yes, if you go back to the Crusades, etc., which was a way back, and this is the whole problem. We wait too long before we record and such like the events that happen. We don't do it while it's still fresh in the memory.
You didn't learn anything about Korea because they didn't teach at all.
No. When we were told we were going to Korea in 1950, the first thing we asked was, where was Korea?
Have you been back to Korea since then?
Yes,
When?
twice.
When?
The last time was 4 years ago.
So you have a pretty good picture of before and after Korea,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Tell young students about your picture of before and after.
When we landed in Korea, we landed at what used to be called Busan, I now believe is Busan. Literally,
When was it? When did you land?
we landed there, and I will give you the exact date, 29th of August 1950.
29?
29th of August 1950.
Oh, so you were very early there.
We were the first British troops ever to go into Korea.
Oh, tell me about the before and after picture.
Well, when we landed there, quite honestly, the country was in ruins. There was hardly a building standing. There was no bridges over the rivers. There was no main roads, etc. And getting from A to B was rather difficult. Come back now, it has developed. You can travel. You've got your bullet train that travels at 200 odd mile an hour from Seoul down to Busan, etc. I believe you've got 65 bridges over the different rivers. You've got 6-lane roads going out, and it has developed. It has produced tremendously over the years.
So what were you thinking when
Well,
you see? When did you go back to Korea?
The last time was 4 years ago.
4 years ago, which is 2013.
Yeah.
And before, when did you go?
It was 2 years prior to that.
So 2011. 11.
11.
And when you see the completely transformed Seoul and Korea, what were you thinking to yourself?
You wonder if you were back in the same place, quite honestly, because there is a tremendous difference in it. The development within the country is tremendous, fantastic. We never ever developed like as quickly and as much over that period of time.
But you are the country of industrial revolution and the roots of democracy, parliament democracy.
We possibly were. I wouldn't say we are. Things have slowed down.
Huh?
Things have slowed down.
Yeah, but still, you used to be the center of the world, the British
that-
Empire, Pax
The
Britannica.
empire. The empire doesn't last as long.
So, when did you join the army?
I joined the army in 1945.
1945. That's the year of the end of the World War II.
End of the war.
When was it? Do you remember the month?
No, not really. Around about June, July, something like that.
And that you were conscripted?
No,
No, so you were volunteered to
I
serve.
volunteered.
So you were a regular soldier.
I was a regular soldier from the word-go.
Why did you join the army?
Well, jobs were difficult to come by, although I had a job. There wasn't a great deal going on at that time. And
What
the
kind?
army seemed to be an outlook and where you could prosper and advance.
What was the good deal compared to the civilian jobs?
Well, pay was very, very poor. I got paid 7 shillings a week when I joined up. And they told you to send some money home to your mother.
7
7
shillings?
shillings a week.
That's
Yes,
not much.
you got 1 shilling a day. That was your pay when I first joined the army.
How much were you paid when you had the civilian jobs?
Possibly slightly more than that, not a great deal. The pays was very low and the prospects wasn't good
So in the beginning, you were paid 7 shillings per week.
per week.
And with the 7 shillings, how much, what kind of things that you were able to buy?
Well, you got everything you required except like polish for cleaning your boots, stuff for cleaning your equipment, or any extras, your own cigarettes, etc. If you smoked or whatever, then you
No,
had
I
to
mean,
buy.
for
But
example-
everything else was supplied to you. Your accommodation, food, everything else was supplied.
Right, but overall in British society at the time, with 7 shilling, what were you able to buy? Like milk or eggs or something like that?
Yeah, but you didn't require to.
I know, but what is the worth of 7 shilling?
Well, yes, let's be quite honest. There was some keeping families on pound 30 shillings a week.
How
And
much?
they were living as families on that,
How much?
about 30 shillings a week. My father would get when I was a young child.
Huh. So it was quite a good deal.
Oh yeah.
Where did you get the basic military training?
I done my basic training in a place called Elgin.
Could you spell it?
Elgin.
Elgin. Elgin.
Elgin. It was the camp was Penfield Camp. It was Pine, Penfield Camp, and I done my initial training there.
How long?
The first one was 6 weeks, which you done, and then you got sent to your own regiment or regimental depot for further training after your initial 6 weeks.
Okay. What was your unit?
My unit was Gallant Southern Highlanders.
Could you spell it?
ARGYLL.
A.
ARGYLL. And AND. Sutherland, SUTHERLAND. Highlanders, HIGHLANDERS.
So Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders, right? Show it to the camera.
There is a cap badge.
Why don't you-
The largest cap badge in the British Army.
Put it on.
If I put that on, I'm then going to have to put
Yeah, take it off and put it on. Wow, that's a lovely hat.
that is known as a Glengarry.
You look great with it. My goodness, nobody will
good.
believe that you are 90-year-old man. Nobody.
Well, there you are.
Beautiful. And could you give me some idea at the time how this whole army of United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland was organized and where your unit belonged to?
Well, after I done my initial 6 weeks training, I came down to just in the outskirts of Edinburgh and done a further 6-8 weeks training. In beginning of January 1945, there was approximately 60 of us, and we got aboard ships and boats, etc., and finished up in Palestine.
Palestine.
Yes, and that's where I first joined my battalion. Was in
What was your
Palestine
battalion?
in January 1946.
What is your battalion?
Sorry, 1946.
What is your battalion?
1st Battalion, Argyll and Southern Highlanders.
And what did you do at the Palestine?
Well, we done Palestine that time was in a typical state as you get at present moment, Afghanistan, etc. And that there was different factions fighting each other, etc. And we were more or less there to try and keep the peace between the Jews, the Arabs, and all the incomers, etc. And a lot of Jews was at that time coming into Palestine from other countries. And we were just there as peacekeepers, more or less.
How was it? Was it dangerous?
Sometimes, like when they put explosives into big canisters, put them in the cellars of the hotel and blew the hotel up. It was dangerous to get in there, but we didn't lose many people, one or two, but...
So your unit, Azil and Sutherland Highlanders, does
Yes.
that belong to the Commonwealth
They belonged to the British Army.
British Army?
Yes.
Okay. So when did you leave for Korea, from where?
Oh, no. We left Palestine when it got the mandate, and Palestine became an independent state in April 1947. We came down into Egypt then, and then we came back home to the United Kingdom. We left in the United Kingdom again in 1949 and went to Hong Kong. We were stationed in Hong Kong when we were told we were going to Korea.
So what were you doing in Hong Kong?
We were patrolling the borders between China and Hong Kong.
And were there any conflict between Hong Kong and China at the
Yeah,
time?
it depends how many you caught swimming the river. the people used to come down from China, then try and swim the river across into Hong Kong. The river was the border. And our job really was to try and stop them swimming the river to get into Hong Kong.
Now Hong Kong is Chinese territory. What do
It
you
is
think
now.
about it? What do you think
It
about
was
it?
British territory at that time.
But originally belonged to China.
It always belonged to China, but it was run by the British people. It was British. We had our own governor there, etc.
Yeah.
During that time, so it was really British run.
So when the Korean War broke out in
1950,
June 25th, what were you doing there? Still patrolling the border?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me about the day that you were You were leaving for Korea. What were you
Well,
feeling?
We got told we were going to Korea, and we had 3 days in which to pack up. Quite honestly, we didn't know even what climate was going to be. We put all our winter clothing, etc., into storage and left it in Hong Kong.
So you left.
So
without
we left Hong Kong with tropical clothing to go to Korea. Now, if you can imagine, we went out on a Royal Navy ship, HMS Ceylon, and we were possibly about 900 strong. So you can imagine them 900 extra bodies, plus all their equipment, aboard a ship which already had its normal crew on it. It was rather...
So you thought that, and the British thought that this war is not going to be long enough.
That
right?
is quite true. We didn't think we would be there very long. We didn't know what was
So 900 of yours?
Yes, there was 900 as us. There was approximately the same from the Middlesex Regiment. And they left on, I'll check the name of the ship. We were left in the Ceylon, and they left on the Unicorn.
So now you are headed to Korea, the country
Right.
that you didn't know where it was.
No, we didn't know where it was, nor what it was, nor what we were going to find when we got there.
What were you thinking? What were you thinking when you go into the war?
It was another job. You're a regular soldier, you're a serviceman, you know what your job's going to be. So it was just another job to us.
What was your rank at the time?
I was a corporal at that time.
Corporal?
Yeah.
So how much were you paid?
Oh, by that time we possibly up about 10, 15 shillings a week. But let's be quite honest, you could live quite well in Hong Kong on that
With
these
that?
days. Yes.
Yeah. How
You
did
could
you like
go out
Hong
with $5 and come back with change in your pocket.
How was Hong Kong?
Oh, Hong Kong was very nice. In actual fact, if the Korean War hadn't started, a friend and I had already arranged, and we had already spoken to companies and we were going to take a discharge in Hong Kong and become civilians working there. We intended that, but because we got sent to Korea, that had to go by the wayside.
So your dream broken.
No. By the time we came back, it was too late.
Too late. So tell me about the Busan you saw, or the Korea that first you saw. What is the image? What is the image of Korea you still have? And be honest, okay? That's because very, very important. Just describe in detail.
In actual fact, when we arrived at Busan, we were rather dismayed.
Why?
We tried to get cranes to lift their stuff off a ship, etc., and that. There was nothing. Everything had to be manhandled off a ship. And the other thing which really struck us is we were going into a war zone as such, as far as we knew. And the first thing that met us when the HMS Ceylon tied up alongside was a big American band. And they were playing all the American jazz music and whatnot. So our commanding officer got rather annoyed and chased them, and we put our own pipes and drums in to play, and which I've got photographs in the house yet of these taken that day. However, the Royal Navy people and ourselves unloaded all the kit onto the dockside. Then we discovered we were going to have to get on a train to take us to where we were going.
Where?
Now, a place called K-Y-O-N.
What?
G-S-A-N.
Where?
K-Y-O-N.
K-Y-O-N.
K-Y-O-N G-S-A-N. It's on the Nakdong River.
Gyeongsan.
Gyeongsan. It's on the Nakdong River.
And how about people that you saw in Busan? How do they look?
Well, we
Were
didn't
there
see.
many Koreans?
They weren't. The only people that met us there was an American band. After we got everything off and onto a train, we discovered we had nobody to drive the train. It so happened a man by the name of George Bathgate, one of our soldiers, had been a train driver before he joined the army. So he drove the train that took us up to the Nakdong River.
How was the situation in Nakdong River?
What? Well, the Nakdong River at that time was the border. The South Koreans was all on the south side of it, and the North Koreans on the other side. And that was the defence line. And quite honestly, if North Korea had crossed that river, South Korea wouldn't exist today. It's as simple as that.
So your specialty was infantryman?
Yes.
So rifle?
Yes.
Okay.
Rifles, machine guns, mortars. We carried our own support weapons, yes.
And describe the situation there in Nakdong River. There was a North Korean army, right?
North Korean was on one side, South Korean and Americans on the other.
Americans and British.
Well, when we joined them, we were the first British to go there.
First British, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Describe the detail, the situation of the battle there. How intensive and how close?
It wasn't intensive at all, because what used to happen, the North Koreans had things called SPs, which is support guns. It's like tanks, a gun on the top of a tank.
Yeah.
And they used to come out and fire a few shells, then go back into the foothills, etc. Out the road, you couldn't see them, etc. And basically that was all that was happening when we first arrived there.
So it was almost like a tank and artillery.
Just a tank carrying across. But what you had to do then, we had to put patrols across the river to find out where their main units were, where they were stationed, what they were doing, etc. Until eventually we crossed the river as a unit. And by that time we were joined by a regiment called the 3rd Australian Battalion. They came from Japan and joined us, and we formed what was known as the 27th Brigade, and that was the first time a United Nations brigade had ever been formed.
So there was UN forces.
For UN, we became UN forces.
So the Americans,
The Americans were on one side, Canadians eventually joined us, but to form 27th Brigade was the Middlesex Regiment, the Argylls, and the 3rd Australians.
no US, no other foreign troops,
No,
but
nothing
just
else.
it's a
No.
completely British brigade.
Solely British.
So was not that close enough so that you're not engaging in, shootings.
Oh yeah, eventually once we got across the river we did do, but we had to get across the river first, and everything had to be manhandled across the river because there was no bridges. So you had to build your own bridges, yeah, and we broke out from there, and everything had to be carried with us from there. And as I say, I think I've got the date. Yeah, and the 4th of it was the night of the 4th of September when we crossed the Nakdong.
Oh, so that was before even Incheon landing. You crossed the Nakdong River.
We crossed the Nakdong on the 4th of September.
So 4th of September, that means that you were in attack mode, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And tell me about any dangerous episode or moments where you might have lost your life or anything that you remember.
We progressed up the country quite easily after we got across the border, and eventually got bridges to put supplies across it. So we progressed up until the 22nd of September, and we took over a feature. When I say a feature, we're talking about hills, and Korea has quite a number of hills. We took over a feature called 282, and
282?
282, yes. And we took over this feature from the Americans because they'd been stuck on it for about 5-6 days, couldn't get off it. On the morning of the 23rd September, we launched an attack on the next feature past it, and actually took that feature very early in the morning. We had it done by breakfast time. But what we didn't know, because the maps, etc. we had were, that there was another feature looped down on top of us. So that gave the North Koreans the advantage of being able to fire downwards on us where we couldn't fire up on them. We called for an airstrike. Now the airstrike was supplied by the American RAF because at that time Britain didn't have any aircraft in the vicinity at all. What was supposed to happen was the aircraft should have come in, look on the features and look for a thing called air recognition panels. Now these were panels which were 6 feet by 3, different colours, and you laid them out in different designs each day. And what they were supposed to do was look for these, then bomb the feature beyond them. But because for approximately a week they had been coming in, dropping everything on this one feature, the aircraft came in and dropped everything on top of us. When this happened, the North Koreans obviously, not being stupid, took advantage of it and counter-attacked us. We lost a great deal of men.
When was it?
23rd of September. However, we recovered and we put another company onto the hill, and we took it, and one of our officers, Major Muir, won the Victoria Cross on that hill. First time a Victoria Cross was won in Korea. We removed every dead and injured man belonging to our unit off that hill. We carried them off and accounted for everyone. We never lost anyone as a prisoner to the North Koreans. Granted, we had to withdraw from the future, but we accounted for everybody to come off it. And I'm afraid things weren't very nice amongst the things of that for a few days. That was the biggest setback we ever had, quite honestly.
But you remember, by September 15th, General MacArthur successfully landed in Incheon, and they cut off this, the logistic line,
Yeah,
so that
that's
the
not
North
true.
Koreans were.
Not really, because let's be quite honest, you must know this as well as me. The North Koreans could live in the hills for months on a bag of rice and nothing else. And this was what happened. And they were only going up in the hills. They weren't clearing the hills. So the North Koreans were living in the hills on practically nothing.
But overall, they are on the run
Yeah.
back to the north,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But you're talking about the guerrilla warfares,
Yeah.
right? In between those.
In between these.
Were you engaged in guerrilla warfare?
Oh yes, we had them. What we used to do is, there was the Middlesex, the 3rd Australians and the South. I mean, each day we tried to move. And you had what was known as the front battalion. And you done one day on that, and when you reached that night where you decided you were going to stop for the night, the next battalion would move through you and take up defence positions in front of you. And you were moving each day. You were never in a static position. And we moved, in actual facts, right up through South Korea. And
You saw Seoul?
yes,
When were you there?
oh, I couldn't tell you the dates offhand on it.
Oh, month. Was it
On the
October?
17th of October, we cleared a town called Sarawon, Sariwon. There's a little map of it, which I took out of one of my books. And it's rather an interesting story.
Yeah, Sariwon is North Korea.
Well, we had reached there by the
October 17th.
October the 17th.
Yeah.
And when we reached there, it was coming up approximately 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And we were doing the forward battalion that day. We asked for tank support from the Americans, and they says, no, it's too late at night. Tanks go into the town, they'll get isolated. So what we done, we had things called carriers, Brengan carriers, which are like miniature tanks, but no turrets on them. And we mounted our own machine guns on them, and we actually cleared the town, Sarawon, that day. And the 3rd Australian Battalion passed through us and took up defence positions on the outside of it. Now, if you look at a little map, you'll see the arrows show us back, where we came back and we were going to harbour up for the night outside the town. And we came to a crossroads and discovered the North Koreans coming in from a different direction. And because we were facing the wrong direction, they took us for Chinese. We managed to get through it and contacted the 3rd Australians. They turned round, faced the opposite way. We travelled round the back, and I think we took about 3,000 odd prisoners that night.
3,000?
Yep.
Wow. All the North Koreans.
They were North Koreans trudging back, and we travelled back till we got behind them, and we just pushed them forward, and the Australians were facing them, and we took somewhere in the region of approximately 3,000 prisoners that night.
That's a lot.
Yes.
So
Yep.
you were in a victorious mood, right?
Well, we just, it's the way things happen. And as I say, we passed that. But we actually got to Pyongyang, and we have the battle honour of a place called Pakchon, Pakchon.
Baekchun.
Yeah, we have that battle honour on our colours for a really hard fought battle on at Batchung.
Tell me about it.
Well, I wasn't involved in it, so there's very little I know, but I know the company that went into it. And initially when they went in, there was a patrol of approximately 30, and there was only 4 came out of that 30. Major Wilson, who commanded it, got decorated for it as well, but I wasn't otherwise occupied by that time.
By the time around middle of October and end of October, did you see any Chinese soldier?
No,
No.
not Chinese at that time. After we reached the Pyongyang, when we reached the outskirts of Pyongyang, we were stopped and told we had to go back.
Why? To where?
Back to 38th Parallel.
38 parallel?
Yeah.
Why?
Because the Americans were in control. And we should never have crossed the 38th parallel. It meant we were invading another country.
So at the time there was no Chinese intervention yet.
No, they came in after that.
After that, but you were told to go back to 38 parallel?
Back to the 38th parallel.
Ah. Because Americans were north, right?
We were all north of the 38th parallel.
But the Americans will take place of you and going toward
Well, it
north.
was the American generals that was controlling all the things. Yeah.
So tell me about on the way back to 38
Well,
parallel. Were there any...
Oh yes, let's be quite honest. After we started coming back, that is when the Chinese actually came in.
Yeah.
Now, it is easier to defend if you're on the advance than what it is if you're retiring to different areas behind you. And we got pushed well back down into South Korea, which should never have happened. If we had kept going, I don't think there would have been the trouble today you have between North and South Korea.
Right, exactly.
That's right, because South Korea wouldn't have existed. So the Americans who say what they like, they are to blame.
So on the way back to 38 parallel, were there any battles?
We had many skirmishes with them, yeah.
So North Korean soldiers were all
North
over?
Korean and Chinese coming in. You could always tell when it was the Chinese because they made so much noise and screaming when they came in.
Bugles.
Bugles and everything. But what we did discover was that we came in troops. It didn't all come together. The first ones would all be armed. The second ones, possibly 50 to 75% would be armed. The third one would pick up weapons and ammunition as they came in. They possibly didn't even have any weapons to start with. So they were, that's why they didn't all come as a one unit. Unless we discovered part of the mechanism of the rifles was made of wood.
So when did you get back to 38 parallel? When did you arrive around the 38 parallel?
We actually handed over to 28th Brigade on the 27th of April.
27th
Of April.
April. You
We
become
handed- we-
28th Brigade, right?
28th Brigade took over from us.
So you were 27th Brigade. Now
Yes.
you become 28th Brigade.
No. 28th Brigade came out from United Kingdom.
Yeah.
And they were King's Own Scottish Borderers, Black Watch, and various other regiments came out.
So
And
you.
they actually took over from 27th Brigade.
So did you leave Korea?
We went back to Hong Kong,
Oh. So that's when? April 27th?
and the 27th of April we handed over and got aboard the USS Montrose, and that took us back to Hong Kong.
So you were relieved.
We were relieved.
Tell me, did you know why you were there? What was the purpose of the war?
Quite honestly, I don't know. other than which seems to have been for many years and over many things, somebody tried to extend their own country and their own. Well, other than that, I can't see what the whole thing was. The other thing is we have a medal which is called whatever.
You were there to contain...
The presidential we got a thing called the presidential citation from a man called Sigmund Rhee.
Uh-huh. Show it to the camera, please.
That is it. Now, there was less than approximately 2,500 people ever qualified for that medal. Only 2 British regiments, the Argylls and the Middlesex Regiment, and the other ones were the 3rd Australians. We cannot wear that medal today. It has never been recognised by the British government. If we want to wear it, we wear it on the right-hand side. Mm-hmm. We can't wear it on our medals.
That's an honor.
That's one thing. And as I say, living today, I reckon you could count them possibly 200, 250 people living that still entitled to wear that.
Tell me about the life. When you arrived in Busan in August of 1950, you went up to the Pyongyang and Sariwon, and then you went down to 38 Parallel. And where did you sleep? What did you eat? How was life? How often were you able to shower? I bet that you hadn't had any shower, right?
Well, in actual fact, showering wasn't too bad because you go to a village and we could, and it was the first time I would class as central heating because the ND1 house would be your kitchen type area. And you lit a fire in it and we cooked our meals in there at night. But the flue or the chimney for the fire went underneath the house and up the other side.
Floor heating.
It was central heating. And let's be quite honest, during the winter, we were very glad of these.
With the summer uniform.
We were still in summer uniform. And we didn't have any supplies coming from United Kingdom. All our food, clothing, was supplied by the Americans. The only thing we got sent out from the United Kingdom was ammunition. Nothing else. And what we couldn't get issued from the Americans, we plundered from either the Americans or the Australians.
We understand that.
Yeah.
It's a war, you know?
Yeah, we plundered what we could from them, which included vehicles. Let's be quite honest.
And where did you sleep?
Oh, it depends where you were. If you were near a village, in a rest area or an area you slept in the houses, etc., which was all emptied anyway. There was very, very few civilians about there. If you were in a defensive position, you slept in your slip trench.
Trench. And did you have a sleeping bag?
No, you had a
What?
blanket.
Did you have a blanket?
Yeah,
That's all?
that's all.
Must
Yep.
have been very cold.
It was. We used to get charcoal and put little burners in the bottom of our slip trench.
Unbelievable.
We had a lot of the Canadians and Americans had very great trouble with frostbite. But for some unknown reason, possibly the worst piece of equipment I ever got was American boots, because the substance they were made of absorbed all the dampness and your feet was never dry with them. British boots, the Americans would give you anything for a pair of British
really?
boots. Oh yes.
So you are proud British man,
Oh, yes.
Scottish.
I'll be quite honest, and I have maintained this for many, many years. The Americans had the finest equipment, other than for one or two little bits and pieces, but they had the worst army in the world.
Why?
Well, because of the way they were doing it. We had a unit, 120 mortars attached to us. And when they came to us, if they came, stopped overnight, the first thing they done was cooked up a meal, etc., etc. We didn't. The first thing you did, you dug your slit trench. You dug your defensive positions. And then you made your meal. And eventually, we got the Americans into our way of working. And they didn't want to go back.
What?
No. They were much happier with the way that we worked than the way that they had worked previously. They didn't lose anybody with us because they'd done what we wanted them to do.
So basically what you're saying is you knew how to fight, but they didn't know how to fight.
Well, this is quite true. We were taught in the jungle in Hong Kong before we went into Korea. So in actual fact, it stood us said. Although the British Army had a lot of what we class as national servicemen at that time, that was people that was coming in to do 2 years and going out, simply because we didn't have sufficient regular soldiers. We had quite a number of national servicemen, but we also had sufficient regular soldiers who was making a whole line of that to keep them turning over.
But also Americans had veterans from the World War II. They know how to fight.
Well, they weren't in Korea.
Oh, they were in Korea. They were in
Let's
Korea.
be quite honest. I got called out on the 1st of January 1951 to go and look for an American patrol that hadn't returned from a patrol that had gone out in the previous night. We travelled approximately 5 miles from where they were and found them all in their sleeping bags. That's how they had done their patrol. They had moved 5 miles up the road, got the sleeping bags out, got their head down.
Yeah. When you were in 38 Parallel, where were you? You were in Little Gibraltar or anywhere similar?
What?
The camp name?
In Korea,
Yeah.
we never had a permanent camp.
No. Where were you in 38 Parallel? In the west side or the east side?
Oh, we travelled right up through it.
Tell me about.
Just wherever you were, we would move from section to section, wherever they needed troops in it. We would move to wherever there was a weak point in the front line, you moved them in. Some days you never knew where you were going to be. It
was
slightly,
very hilly, right?
Yeah.
Lots of mountains.
Just mountains, oh yeah. The Australians were first class. If we went to them, being typical British Army soldiers, you wash and shave every morning. Now you could be sitting on top of a hill. You don't get water on the top of a hill. So you possibly had to walk down the hill to get water. The Australians got on the top of the hill and they sat there until they had to come off it. That's a different way the British and such likes work.
Yeah. So when you left in April 1951, had you ever imagined that Korea would become like this today?
No. Korea was a ruin when we left it. We left from Busan again on USS Montrose, but Korea was in ruins completely. So the whole lot.
Did you see Seoul?
Oh yes.
Tell
We
me
passed
about
through
Seoul.
part of Seoul. Oh,
What
it was
did you
just
see?
ruins. There was no, you just dug your way through it. The population was all down south. There was nobody left in it. There was no wildlife.
Was Korean people really poor at the time?
Quite honest, we couldn't have existed without the South Koreans. They had things called an A-frame. And they used to carry all our stuff up the hills to us.
Yeah.
Ammunition, food, water, etc. And without them, we could never have existed.
What can be the adjective that you want to use to describe the Seoul and Korea that you saw? Tell me.
Then or today?
Then.
Then. I never thought it would ever exist. I thought, quite honestly, so. I thought the whole South Korea, quite honestly, might just. It was nothing.
Give me the adjective to describe the Korea that you saw in 1950-51. What can be the adjective?
Just a ruin. That's all. The whole country was a ruin.
What else?
Wow. Living standards of the population was very, very poor, very bleak. The outlook was very poor, etc. for them.
What can be the adjective to describe the Seoul that you saw in 2013 and 14?
Well, what can you say? If there's not a building standing which you can say is secure, then what can you call the country? It's just nothing. It's ruined. It's finished.
But 2013, you saw there, right?
That is a difference. Now that's where I've got problems with them.
Why?
Well, I done a little bit of investigation the last time I was there, and Seoul has, at that time, they told me, had a population of 15 million. They live in 20, 25-story buildings. They can't go that way because of the terrain, so they've gone that way. And how high can they go? If the population keeps increasing, where are they going to put them? Now, I travelled right up to the 38th parallel on it. Wildlife has never returned. There is very, very little wildlife in the country. The only thing you've seen was a few pigeons in Seoul, but they were so fat they could barely fly, quite honestly. But that was the only wildlife we've seen in it. And it's the one thing that you go to Busan. Now I believe Busan population is about 10 million. Again, it has the same problem. Where do you put them? I don't know.
So all high
So
rise.
what is the future going to be?
So that is our problem, right? Too much prosperity.
Well, or do you, how do you control your population? What's the maximum height you can go in a building?
Right.
I've lost contact with her now, but I was in contact with a student in Seoul, and she started on the 25th floor of a flat, and her ambition was eventually to get moved periodically when flats became empty until she reached the ground floor of a house. I think she had moved down about 10 flights when I eventually lost contact with her.
So were you proud that the Korea was become like that today?
Oh, I'm proud of what they've done, there's no doubt about it. But more recently, what is going to become?
Very good point, Adam. Do you know why the British didn't teach world history at the time that you were growing up?
Well, let's be clear, I don't think the British are sole purposes in this. We just take, over the last year, 18 months, I've had more people asking for interviews. So we're coming up to 65, coming nigh on 70 years. Why have we waited 65, 70 years before we do this? By the time this gets into the schools, it'd be the grandchildren which is getting this, great-grandchildren, not, you know. You go into Korea today, the elder population, if they meet you in the street and they make you so, they stop, if they recognize you, and they bow, irrespective of what they've got, they will offer it to you. They are appreciated of what happened. Will it be the same in 70 years' time with a new generation? I don't know.
Why is it known as a forgotten war?
Because it was never really recognized. Let's be quite honest, we were 18 months finished before the British government issued a medal. And the only reason it was issued then was because the United Nations issued one and the British government had to do something to balance it. It wasn't recognized as such by the British government for some unknown reason. I don't know.
So how do we make this forgotten war as the war that we need to learn about?
You'll never do
How? No?
it. No.
Why not?
Too late.
No?
Yes, too late. Let's be quite honest. Talking to my grandchildren, etc. today, they don't get taught First, Second World Wars. Don't get taught in schools. And this will happen with anything that happens. Afghanistan, Korea, Aden, etc. I don't think they'll become.
We are trying to make it, this interview, for example, with you, as a part of history textbook, so that the students in the school in the United States and also in Great Britain, they can learn from you. And so that's why we are doing this. Do you think it will make sense?
It makes sense, but I wish I'd done it 50 years ago.
That's why I wanted to do more interview with your chapter member.
Well, no, see, we have a problem, quite honestly. Other than the Black Watch, the Kingsland Scottish Borders and herself, the other regiments, Scottish regiments who went into Korea went in 1953. I've only got 42 members left in my branch.
How many?
42.
Uh-huh.
At least 2/3 of these are people who went in 1953 to 1955. Now, they were not part of the, shall I say, the fighting troops. They were peacekeepers.
Right.
Therefore, they don't know. And this is one of the reasons why you don't get them coming out to give you interviews. All they done was they sat in a statutory position all the time.
How many Korean war veterans in your branch?
Who actually fought?
4?
No.
Yeah, who actually fought? How many are there in your branch?
I would say possibly 20.
20?
20.
Yeah,
And they're slowly vanishing.
I know. So if I come back to you live in Bathgate, right?
I live in Livingston.
Livingston?
Yeah, which is just outside Bathgate.
Yeah. So if I come back, do you think I can do interview of those 20 people? Why not?
I don't know.
They are younger than you, actually.
None of them. I'm the oldest member of our branch.
I know.
They're all younger, but they've now reached this stage where they don't. I'm quite honest, a lot of them has given up. I'm lucky if I see 15 coming out to our meetings.
I know.
Old age.
So even if I come back to your place, they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Why not?
They just don't do it any longer. I tried to get them to come out for photographs. I had a South Korean company, I can't remember its name, Newsan or something, which fits central heating boilers. They offered me 5 boilers for Korean veterans. I can only get rid of 3. Just the will now is no longer there. This is why I say we should have done this many, many years ago.
Yeah. Any other episode or anything that you want to leave to this message?
Not really. As I say, I quite enjoyed my 2 trips back to Korea. I thought I enjoyed it. I don't think I'll make a 3rd one. Age is creeping up. The legs don't do what they're told as well as they should. But
You're still pretty good. You're still very good, in shape.
as isn't it? I say I keep myself busy. This is I could have went back years prior, but my other half was ill. I looked after her for 5 years before I lost her, and that's when I decided I'd make the trips back.
All right. Adam, finally meet you here in Edinburgh, and very nice to talking to you, and you are in great shape. I cannot believe that you are 90-year-old man at all. So please keep up your good work, making yourself busy all the time, and I hope that I can see you next time too, okay?
Yeah, I hope so.
All right.
Yeah.